All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be talking all about Nepal's money market.
Ooh, exciting.
It's the world of, those financial instruments maturing in under a year.
Right, right.
So think of it as like the foundation for any sort of short-term financial dealings,
Yeah, huh.
where you've got the government, you've got companies, they're trading these securities to get cash fast.
Makes sense.
And this is separate from the longer-term capital market, which I think we've talked about a few times on this show.
Yep.
But our mission today is to really unpack what are the key tools in this.
Yeah, what's at play here?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think it's a market that people kind of overlook, It's crucial for the financial health of institutions day to day.
Yeah.
Like a good example is treasury bills.
Right.
They help the government manage those really immediate expenses.
Yeah.
And then importantly, Nepal Rastra Bank
Yep.
uses this arena to implement its monetary policy, right?
That's it.
So it influences interest rates, how much money is out there.
Liquidity. Yep.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's dive right in
Let's do it.
to these tools. And first up, treasury bills.
All right.
So what are they?
So at their core, treasury bills are just short-term debt
Okay.
that's issued by the Nepali government. And these always mature in less than a year.
Less than a year. Okay.
Yeah, always less than a year. And they actually come in four main types.
Oh, okay.
So you get your 28-day, 91-day, 182, and then 364-day bills.
So it's a pretty quick way
It's a fast
for the government to get,
these loans.
yeah, those domestic loans. Exactly.
Yeah.
So how do investors actually get involved? Like, how do they get their hands on these?
So it's actually through a bidding process run by Nepal Rastra Bank.
Okay.
So you can kind of picture it like an auction, right?
Right.
Where banks and other financial institutions are bidding on the yield that they'll accept.
Okay.
And interesting thing here is that these bills are actually sold at a discount to their face value.
Interesting. So, like,
So, example, if you buy a bill for, let's say, 98 rupees and it pays out 100 at maturity,
right.
you just made 2 rupees.
Okay, yeah.
So that difference, that's the profit.
That's the investor's return.
Exactly, and this is how it works. That discount mechanism is really efficient. It figures out the cost of borrowing for the government based on what the market wants.
Yeah, supply and demand.
Exactly, supply and demand.
So the government gets its short-term funds. Investors get a pretty, hopefully, low-risk short-term return.
Yep.
And we've even seen some examples recently of these auctions from Nepal Rastra Bank.
We have, and it goes even further than just government funding.
Okay.
So Nepal Rastra Bank, they also take these treasury bills and longer-term development bonds
Okay.
as collateral for this thing called a standing liquidity facility.
What is that?
It's kind of like a safety net,
Mhm.
right? So it lets banks borrow funds on a really short-term basis if they need to.
So they can get some quick cash if things are...
Yeah, if things are a little tight.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving on, what about these bank deposit certificates? I feel like this is something that maybe individuals are more familiar with.
Yeah, for sure.
You see ads for them all the time.
Yeah, this is something you're going to encounter in your daily life.
Exactly.
These are the instruments that are issued by banks, finance companies, to raise money from everyday people
Okay.
for a fixed amount of time.
So I put my money in there for a certain period of time.
Exactly.
And I get a certain predetermined interest rate.
Exactly. And that interest can be paid out, monthly, quarterly, or annually.
The different options there.
Different options, yeah. And essentially, it's just a fixed deposit.
Oh,
And it gives the banks a really stable source of funding,
right.
and it gives the depositors that predictable return.
Which everybody wants.
Yeah, everybody wants that.
And we know that various banks in Nepal offer these types of schemes, often with that deposit insurance up to 5 lakh rupees.
Yes.
A little bit of security there.
Adds that extra layer. Security, exactly.
Okay, so then we have commercial papers, and these sound like they're geared more towards larger companies.
Yeah, these are a little bit different.
Okay.
So these are unsecured promissory notes. So basically you're saying, I promise to pay
Okay.
in a very formal way.
Right. Legally binding.
Exactly, yeah. And they're issued by large, credit-worthy companies
Got it.
for short-term financing.
Okay.
So they're sold at a discount, just like the treasury bills,
Okay.
and then redeemed at face value upon maturity. So it lets companies get money directly from the market, potentially at a lower cost than going through those traditional bank loans.
So it bypasses that whole system.
Bypasses the whole system, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, our sources mention these, but we don't have any specific examples of them being widely used in Nepal.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, it could be a few things, right? You got to think about the credit rating environment
Okay.
in Nepal currently. Or maybe companies just rely on that traditional bank financing.
Yeah, maybe they're just used to it.
They're used to it, exactly. Or maybe it's just a new thing.
Right.
It's still growing.
Yeah, it's still developing.
Yeah.
It's in its nascent stage.
It's in its nascent stage.
Okay, so then we have bankers' acceptances.
Okay.
This sounds like it's related to international trade.
It is. It
What's
is.
going on there?
So these are short-term credit instruments created by firms, non-financial firms,
Okay.
but they are guaranteed by a bank.
So they have that backing.
They have the backing, yeah, and their main use is in international trade finance.
Okay.
So picture this, right? You've got a Nepali business that wants to import goods.
Okay.
This banker's acceptance, backed by the bank, says to that foreign exporter, you're going to get paid.
Right. So it's like that guarantee.
It's that guarantee. And, our sources actually highlight letters of credit as that major trade finance tool in Nepal.
Right.
It's a similar thing. It's basically just saying, look, we have the bank's guarantee. Yes.
Okay, very interesting. So Nepal Rashtra Bank, they're not just sitting back watching all of this happen.
Oh, no, they're very active.
What else are they doing in this money market? What are their tools are they using?
Oh, tons of tools. So they're really focused on managing that liquidity, how much money is out there.
Okay.
And one key way they do this is deposit collection instruments.
Okay, what are those?
So basically, they're accepting fixed-term deposits from other banks to kind of soak up any extra cash in the system.
So if there's too much money,
If there's too much, they take it out.
I just suck it back in.
Suck it back in, exactly. And we've seen that in some recent auctions, actually.
Yeah.
And then they also have repo and reverse repo agreements.
What's the difference?
So those are short-term buying and selling of government securities
Okay.
to either inject liquidity or withdraw it. So repo puts it in, reverse repo takes it out.
So it depends which direction they want to.
Depends on what they're going for, yeah.
Okay.
And then they can also directly buy or sell those securities. Similar idea.
Just depending on market conditions and.
Exactly. And then NRB, they can issue their own bonds as well for liquidity management.
So it's like they have this whole toolkit that they're using to make sure things are running smoothly.
Oh, yeah. It's a constant.
Very active, always adjusting.
Always adjusting, yeah.
So what are some of the recent trends or changes you've seen? What's new in this world?
So there's definitely this big push to grow Nepal's money and bond markets further.
Okay, yeah.
And there's an IFC study, actually, that pointed out something really interesting. They said, look, the stock market is dominating.
Right.
But these shorter-term markets need some help, right?
Yeah.
Maybe some legal improvements, some infrastructure.
They need some attention.
They need some attention.
Yeah, maybe they're getting overshadowed.
They might be, yeah.
Mhm.
And the fact that Nepal Rashtra Bank keeps using those deposit collection tools, that suggests to me they're still managing a lot of excess liquidity.
Yeah, so maybe there's still a lot of cash floating around out there.
Maybe, yeah. And another interesting thing, the recent midterm review of monetary policy, that shows easy liquidity and interbank rates are falling.
So maybe things are
Things are changing. Yeah.
shifting.
Yeah, and that's different than how it was before.
It's not static. It's always.
It's dynamic. It's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And we even saw a couple years ago, the monetary policy actually decreased some key interest rates to try to lower borrowing costs across the whole economy.
Well.
Yeah, big moves. And of course, that affects how much money market instruments yield.
Right, and how often they're used.
Exactly.
So it's like a whole ecosystem.
It's all connected. Yeah,
All these things are
connected.
impacting each other.
Yep.
So just to kind of recap here, we've got treasury bills and bank deposit certificates. Those seem to be the major players.
Yeah, the big ones.
Then we've got commercial papers and bankers' acceptances, which are still sort of.
They're on the come up, yeah.
They're developing, they're finding their place.
Finding their place, yeah.
And Nepal Rashtra Bank, they're right in the thick of it.
Oh, yeah.
Making sure that the liquidity situation is.
Balanced, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
As best they can.
So it seems like there's a lot of potential for growth and diversification in Nepal's money market.
For sure, for sure.
And I guess a final thought for our listeners out there. Given how important these tools are for individuals, for the whole economy, what new opportunities or challenges might come up as Nepal's money market keeps evolving? With these changes in liquidity, with that regulatory focus.
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
It is something to think about, yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive today. This was really insightful.
My pleasure. This was a fun one.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Me too.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya.